when we study the architecture of power in Westeros, we are heavily conditioned to look for the massive, undeniable threats. I mean, we expect power to be loud.
Right.
We look for the shadow of a dragon over a battlefield, a king sitting on a throne forged of melted swords, or, tens of thousands of armored soldiers marching in perfect unison.
Yeah, exactly. We categorize threats by what can physically destroy us. It's basically a psychological safety net.
Right, because if power is massive and visible, we believe we can see it coming from a mile away.
And we convince ourselves that history is shaped by these grand, sweeping forces clashing on open fields, but the reality is often much darker.
Oh, absolutely. And digging into the suppressed, hidden history of 211 AC completely shatters that safety net. Welcome to today's deep dive. We are unearthing an incident that the world has tried to keep buried.
The historical records surrounding the White Walls incident are treated almost like a forbidden secret. And when you read them, you really start to understand why.
You really do. Because it proves that the most devastating weapon in the Seven Kingdoms wasn't some legendary Valyrian steel blade or a massive mercenary company. It was a dirty, worn leather boot and a golden signet ring etched with a three-headed dragon.
The White Walls incident forces us to completely re-examine everything we know about political dominance. We're looking at a moment where the illusion of power became indistinguishable from actual power.
Yeah, and our mission for this deep dive is to explore how a 10-year-old boy, utterly isolated and surrounded by men who wanted to exterminate his bloodline, looked an entire fortress of battle-hardened traitors in the eye and, well, executed the single greatest political bluff in Westerosi history.
It's mind-blowing. Let's pull back the curtain on Castle White Walls. Anyone familiar with the lore knows the lingering scars of the first Blackfyre rebellion.
Right. Even 15 years after the Redgrass Field, that civil war never truly ended in the minds of the defeated.
Exactly. So Lord Ambrose Butterwell's wedding tourney at White Walls was supposed to be a celebration, and on the surface, the castle is this stunning, pristine fortress built of pure white marble. I mean, it looks like something straight out of a song.
But the architecture itself is a mask. Beneath that pristine white marble is a suffocating atmosphere of paranoia and treason.
Yeah, this was not a wedding. It was a traitor's tourney. Almost every single lord, knight, and free rider walking those halls was a former Blackfyre rebel.
They were secretly gathering to crown Demon the second Blackfyre and launch a second bloody civil war against the ruling Targaryen dynasty.
And into this highly combustible, terrifying environment wandered two people who absolutely should not be there.
Yeah, we have the massive hedge knight, Sir Duncan the Tall, or Dunk, and his squire, a bald, muddy, 10-year-old kid named Egg.
They just stumble into this viper's nest completely unaware of the scale of the treason surrounding them.
And the historical accounts capture this rapid escalation from, underlying tension to immediate visceral horror. I mean, Dunk barely survives a vicious, sudden assassination attempt by a castle well.
Right, he takes a really nasty gash to the side, bleeding heavily.
But the crazy thing is the physical wound doesn't even register for him.
Yeah.
Because he suddenly realizes Egg is missing in the crowd.
And the stakes of that disappearance, I mean, they cannot be overstated. We have to consider the brutal calculus of a rebellion here.
Yeah, because Egg is, of course, Prince Aegon Targaryen in disguise. He carries the literal blood of the dragon.
Exactly. If the Lords of White Walls discover his true identity, there is no ransom negotiation. There is no hostage exchange.
No, none at all.
In the twisted symbolic logic of these gathered veterans, slitting the throat of a Targaryen prince on the eve of their uprising is, well, it's the ultimate blood sacrifice to legitimize their new war.
It's terrifying. I mean, put yourself in Egg's boots for a second. You were 10 years old. You were entirely alone in a massive, unfamiliar fortress. You are surrounded by hundreds of ruthless men whose entire political ideology, their entire brotherhood, is based on the extermination of your family.
It's a literal nightmare scenario.
How do you even survive that? I mean, hiding under a bed or trying to slip out a kitchen door feels like the instinctual move. But in a fortified castle locked down for a clandestine gathering, flight is a mathematical impossibility. It's like being locked in a dark room full of starving wolves while wearing a coat made of raw meat.
That is the perfect analogy, because a child cannot outrun a castle security apparatus. The drawbridges are raised, the portcullises are down, and the guards are hyper-vigilant.
Right.
Egg intuitively understands that trying to shrink into the shadows will only delay his execution by a few hours.
So the only remaining option is to manipulate the environment itself, which brings us to the shadowy, candlelit sanctuary of the castle septing.
This scene is just incredible.
It really is. Dunk is bleeding, he's frantic, and he kicks open the heavy wooden doors of the sept, expecting the worst. He's anticipating finding his squire bound, gagged, or, already bleeding out on the altar of the seven gods.
But instead, the scene he walks into is so jarring it completely fractures his understanding of reality. The visual contrast recorded in the accounts is staggering.
Oh, absolutely. Dunk bursts in to find Egg just sitting calmly on a bench in the gloom, and kneeling on the cold stone floor before him, sweating, trembling, and utterly panic-stricken, is Lord Ambrose Butterwell.
The immensely wealthy host of the tourney and the primary financier of the entire rebellion.
The man paying for the treason is on his knees before a muddy squire. It is a phenomenal image.
It is. Egg didn't hide. He reached deep into that filthy leather boot, pulled out his royal signet ring bearing the Targaryen crest, and marched right up to the lord of the castle.
I look at that ring like a radioactive isotope. I mean, it doesn't have a sharpened edge, it can't physically cut anyone, but exposing it in that specific room to that specific man causes a total psychological meltdown of the established environment.
The mechanics of this bluff, what historians often refer to as the spicy plot twist of 211 AC, are a masterclass in psychological warfare.
The spicy plot twist.
Yeah.
I love that term for it.
Right, because revealing his identity was an immense risk. But Egg doesn't just reveal himself and ask for mercy. He weaponizes his own vulnerability. He looks down at this incredibly powerful lord and delivers a colossal, perfectly tailored lie.
It's brilliant. He tells Butterwell that he and Sir Duncan aren't just hapless wanderers. He claims they are elite, undercover royal spies.
Which is hilarious because Dunk is just a hedge knight.
Totally. And he says his father, the notoriously fierce and unforgiving Prince Maekar Targaryen, already knows every single detail about this treasonous gathering.
And then Egg just drops the hammer. He claims a massive, unstoppable royal army commanded by Prince Maekar is currently marching on White Walls to burn it to the ground.
I mean, it's like a high-stakes game of poker, where a kid goes all in with a pair of twos, and the billionaire sitting across the table completely folds out of sheer terror.
Let's analyze why this specific lie detonates Butterwell's nerve. Egg is reading his opponent's political track record with terrifying accuracy.
Yeah, because Lord Ambrose Butterwell is an opportunist, right? He's not a fanatic.
Exactly. During his brief tenure as Hand of the King years prior, he notoriously failed because he was paralyzed by indecision. He was always trying to play both sides of every conflict.
He wants the glory and the tax benefits of a successful treason, but he possesses absolutely zero stomach for the actual risk of war.
Precisely. He wants to buy a rebellion, not fight in one. So when he is suddenly faced with the unshakable, haughty authority of a Targaryen prince, a child who isn't acting like cornered prey, but acting like a king who has him cornered, Butterwell's entire mental architecture collapses.
He doesn't even pause to question the logistics of how an army could mobilize so fast. The mere threat of Maekar's wrath is enough.
He renounces the rebellion on the spot, begs a 10-year-old for his life, and immediately tries to blame the entire plot on his own guests.
It is absolute psychological dominance. Egg wields the illusion of Targaryen power so effectively that, in Butterwell's mind, the royal army is already at the gates.
The bluff exploits the inherent fragility of a conspiracy built on wealth rather than conviction.
It's so brilliant.
Yeah.
But a bluff is ultimately a mechanism that relies on the target's capacity to feel fear. It only works on a man who calculates risk and self-preservation.
It worked on Butterwell.
But what happens when that psychological chess match is interrupted by someone who doesn't care about the board?
The entire atmosphere in the sept shifts the moment the heavy doors are kicked open a second time. Black Tom Heddle enters the sanctuary.
Oh man, Black Tom Heddle.
Yeah. He is Butterwell's son-in-law, a grim, heavily armored veteran of the rebel cause. Heddle represents the exact opposite of Butterwell's cowardly opportunism. He is the pragmatic fanatic.
She steps into the candlelight with his sword drawn. And Black Tom Heddle does not give a single thought to the psychological weight of a golden signet ring.
Not at all.
He isn't paralyzed by the theoretical threat of a future army marching on the castle. He focuses entirely on the immediate physical vulnerability of the boy sitting in front of him.
Because Heddle knows one brutal mathematical truth. If the prince escapes White Walls alive, the rebellion is dead before it even begins.
Wow, yeah.
He understands that revolutions are built on momentum and irreversible acts. Spilling royal blood on the altar is the ultimate irreversible act. It forces the hands of every hesitant lord in the castle. So he moves to murder Egg without a second of hesitation.
But he has to get through Dunk first. And this is where the cerebral, psychological warfare is violently replaced by the ugly reality of survival.
It gets really messy here.
Dunk is already bleeding heavily from the well attack. He's exhausted, running on adrenaline and panic. He steps between the assassin and his prince. And what follows is not some glamorous, chivalric duel sung about by bards.
No, the confined space at the sept makes it a brutal, desperate brawl. Dunk is losing blood rapidly, but he leverages his sheer, massive size and pure desperation.
He overpowers the veteran killer, finally slaying Black Tom Heddle. The man's blood pools over the sacred stone floor of the sanctuary, violating the holy space.
And that victory leaves them in an impossible, terrifying situation. Dunk is standing there, breathing heavily over a dead body, and he knows the clock is ticking.
The noise of the fight, combined with Heddle's sudden absence, is going to bring the entire fortress of Blackfyre loyalists down upon the sept in a matter of minutes. They are completely out of time.
So Dunk points to the secret tunnels beneath the castle tunnels that Butterwell knows about, and he orders the trembling Lord and Egg to flee into the woods.
Dunk provides them with their only viable route of escape. But the historical account of his next decision is what truly elevates this incident.
It really is.
And this is the part of the record that always demands a deeper look. Let me ask you this, because if there were secret tunnels leading out to the safety of the woods, the natural instinct is to ask why Dunk doesn't just run into the dark with them. I mean, splitting up seems completely counterintuitive when you have the escape route right in front of you.
It does seem crazy at first, but we have to analyze the mechanics of a medieval manhunt to understand Dunk's brutal necessity here.
Okay, lay it out for us.
A giant, bleeding knight, a panicking lord, and a 10-year-old boy trying to navigate pitch-black tunnels are going to be agonizingly slow. The moment the castle guards discover Black Tom's corpse in the sept, the fortress will go into absolute lockdown.
Right, they aren't just going to let them walk away.
Exactly. They will seal the gates, release the hounds, and scour the surrounding woods with light cavalry.
They would be tracked down and hunted like animals within the hour. The woods offer cover, but not invisibility against an organized perimeter search.
Precisely why Dunk stays behind. The only way to ensure that the prince escapes unseen is if the castle leadership doesn't even realize he is escaping in the first place.
Oh, I see.
Dunk has to create a distraction so massive, so chaotic, and so blindingly public that it pulls the entire focus of the rebel army away from the missing boy. He is consciously choosing a suicide mission to buy egg time in the dark.
He is offering himself up as a sacrificial lamb to force the wolf pack to look the other way. Dunk turns his back on the safety of the tunnels, leaves his prince to navigate the dark, and marches directly toward the grand torchlit doors of the White Walls feasting hall. He's walking straight into the jaws of the Black Dragon.
The spatial dynamics of this maneuver are just incredible. Dunk pushes open the heavy oak doors of the Great Hall, stepping into a room packed with hundreds of rebel lords.
And at the head table sits Daemon the Second Blackfyre, the Pretender King, wearing a crown of black iron.
Dunk is one bleeding, exhausted knight staring down the entire leadership of a treasonous army.
He knows he needs to orchestrate a scene that paralyzes the entire castle, because a simple attack would just get him quietly butchered by the guards.
Right. So instead, he uses their own twisted sociology against them. He publicly accuses the rebel commanders of framing a young knight for the theft of a priceless dragon egg, which was the grand prize of the tourney.
And to settle this accusation, Dunk invokes the absolute, undeniable right of a trial by combat.
Dunk is leveraging the strict cultural rules of Westerosi chivalry as a weapon. We must look at the fragility of Daemon Blackfyre's coalition here.
Yeah, these rebel lords are prideful, fractious, and inherently suspicious of authority.
Daemon's entire claim to the Iron Throne rests on the narrative that he is a true martial king, a warrior bound by honor, unlike the bookish Targaryen sitting in King's Landing.
So if Daemon refuses a lawful public challenge from a wounded hedge knight, he looks weak. He looks like a coward in front of the exact men he needs to bleed for his cause.
It's brilliant political extortion. Dunk forces the rebel king into a corner where declining the duel shatters his own political legitimacy.
Daemon is trapped by his own ideology. He accepts the challenge. They leave the feasting hall and ride out to the muddy tourney field.
And the entire castle empties out to watch the spectacle. The lords, the guards, the servants, every single eye in White Walls is pulled onto Dunk, fighting the rebel king in the mud.
The distraction works flawlessly. Dunk is buying Egg those precious, agonizing minutes to crawl through the tunnels and disappear into the trees.
And Dunk fights with absolutely everything he has left. Despite the blood loss, he manages to knock Daemon the Black Dragon from his saddle. The rebel king falls into the mud.
But just as he hits the ground, the entire atmosphere of the valley shatters.
The historical pivot in this exact moment is stunning.
A deafening blast echoes through the valley. It isn't just one or two horns. It is hundreds of war horns blowing simultaneously from the ridges outside the castle walls.
The sky above White Walls suddenly goes dark as a massive flock of ravens takes flight from the tree line, physically blotting out the sun.
The rebel lords, who mere seconds ago were cheering for a chivalric duel, rush to the battlements. They look over the pristine white marble walls of their fortress and realize the horrific reality of their situation.
They see a sea of spears, thousands of armored soldiers surrounding the castle, volleys of arrows begin raining down.
It is absolute shock. I mean, Egg's bluff about an army was a complete lie, but an army actually showed up. It's like calling in a fake bomb threat to escape a building, only for an actual explosion to happen the second you step outside.
It feels like magic, but it is the result of a terrifyingly efficient intelligence network.
It's wild. Down in the Sept, Egg lied to Lord Butterwell. He fabricated a story about a massive royal army marching on the castle just to scare a coward into submission. It was a complete fabrication. But as Dunk and Daemon fall in the mud, an actual army arrives. The universe seemingly bends to make the 10-year-old's lie a reality.
The blood of the dragon is often associated with breathing fire from the sky. But the White Walls incident proves that true Targaryen power is rooted in unyielding, calculated psychological dominance.
Down in the dark of that bloody, candlelit sept, a 10-year-old boy stepped out of the shadow of a muddy squire and took his first real step toward true kingship.
He broke the momentum of a civil war with a piece of gold and the sheer audacity of his bloodline.
He wielded the illusion of power so effectively that it brought an entire fortress to its knees.
But the arrival of that army leaves a lingering dark shadow over the entire historical record. It forces us to reevaluate the board.
It really does, because it leaves you with a chilling, unanswered question to mull over based on the brutal reality of these sources. Think about the timeline.
Right.
Egg's bluff down in the Sept was entirely a lie. His father, Prince Maekar, was hundreds of miles away, completely unaware of the gathering at White Walls.
The trap was already sprung before Dunk and Egg ever crossed the drawbridge.
Exactly. So, when those rebel lords looked over the battlements, whose army did they actually see? The banners flapping in the wind didn't belong to Prince Maekar. They bore the sigil of a white dragon with red eyes.
Which is terrifying when you realize what that means for the people inside.
Who is this mysterious, hidden commander marching under the banner of the white dragon with red eyes? Who knew about this secret rebellion when absolutely no one else did? And what kind of calculated absolute slaughter are they about to unleash upon those trapped inside the pristine walls of Castle White Walls?
The historical records leave us staring into some very bloody, muddy waters, realizing that the players who think they are controlling the game are often just pawns on someone else's board.
Keep that hidden history in mind and question the illusions of power around you. Until next time, keep digging into the dark lore.